Hello? Yeah, all right, there, I fixed it. All right, hopefully you guys can hear me now. Matt, if you could give me a thumbs up in the comments if you can hear me or not, that'd be super. Okay, fantastic. So I don't think you guys got any of that first part, but basically I want to start this, Lions talk. I want to just kind of start this thing where, we can come talk Lions football. I can bring some people in. You guys can ask questions, obviously have talking points on the board. Brad Holmes as general manager, Brad Campbell as head coach, the draft prospects, the Stafford situation, all that different things. I think it could be fun. I think it could be really fun to just talk some Lions football, talk to some real people instead of just talking to a camera all day. And since Matt was kind enough and awesome enough to be, the first person here and ask the first question, he says, I'm a new subscriber, but what do you think about Stafford's future? And, if you, obviously you're new here, so you might not have heard these situations before. You might not have heard our fantastic conversations, but I love Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is my favorite quarterback. Matt Stafford's my favorite player in the NFL. He's my quarterback. He's the guy that I've seen quarterback the Lions for a very long time, and he's been the guy that he's been the only quarterback to really play for my Lions. Obviously, the injuries have changed that a little bit, but I love Matt Stafford. I want him to stay as long as possible. I don't think it's a bad idea to draft his successor, but I think the Lions are going to let Stafford play out his career. I think they're going to let him at least play out his current contract, which I believe expires not next year, but the year after that. So I think they'll let him play that out. I think the Lions owe him that at least if he wants to play here in Detroit. The Lions have done a lot of things to Matt Stafford, and I think that he deserves to play the rest of his contract out at the very least, especially if he wants to be here. I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it would be, I think they owe Stafford the courtesy of letting him play out his contract. So I think that's how it's going to go. But I do think in the very near future, we're going to find a successor to Matt Stafford. So I think that's kind of the Stafford situation. Again, I love Matt Stafford. I think he is and I think he's a great quarterback. I think he is very, very capable of winning a lot of games, but I also think that, he's an older quarterback. He struggled with some injuries for a little bit, but I think it's time to look towards the future. And unfortunately enough, I don't want to look towards the future. I love Matt Stafford. I wish he could stay here forever. I wish he could play at a high level forever for my Lions. But the reality of the situation is, you're not gonna have Stafford forever. And I think he's gonna play out the rest of his contract. But I don't think we'll re-sign him after that. I think we're gonna find the successor. And I think come 2022, would it be? I think we're gonna move on from Stafford. And I'll shed a tear and I'll wish him well with whether he retires or whether he goes to a different organization. I hope he goes to a different organization. I hope he has a chance to win. I hope he has a chance to go get a Super Bowl ring. I hope he has a chance to go win some playoff games because I don't, as great as he's been in Detroit, he hasn't had that situation, hasn't had that opportunity really. So I just that's kind of my thoughts on the Stafford situation. I think they'll let him play his contract out, but I don't think he will be back. Do you know Chez? I do not. I do not know him. I apologize for that. Dr. Detroit, my good friend Dr. Detroit says Stafford is staying. So, hope you're right. I hope you're right about that. Dr. Detroit says the good GMs and coaches did not want to come here because they wanted to move on. Tell us the whole story. Or tells the whole story. I mean, I think that's a very interesting thing to look at. I mean, it just I think the uncertainty with Stafford did drive away some people. I don't think that. I think if you're referencing Robert Saleh, I think the Jets just had a better situation for him. I think they have some decent pieces in place. They obviously have a lot more cap space and a lot more capital to build up that team. So, it sucks that Robert Saleh didn't come here. As far as good GMs, I think Brad Holmes is a fine GM. I think he's a good candidate. Obviously, I talked a lot yesterday about his ability to evaluate talent. I think he's very good at that. Brad Holmes is, I think, very good. Ed Dodds, I don't think is going to take a job at all this year. I think he's very specific, very particular about what he wants. So, I don't think he's going to take a job. And I think what he's looking for, the Lions just don't have. Matt says, your 2020 hype video was sick. Too bad they didn't do that good. I appreciate that. I put a lot of effort into that one. I'm working already on the 2021 hype video. It won't be out for quite a while. I'm trying to get, as good as I can get with that one. I have some real cool ideas. I have a couple things in there already. I have a couple things edited and put together, a couple of real nice clips. So I'm excited for that one. I think you guys will really like the 2021 hype video. I have a little bit more experience with editing now. I have a little bit more experience with certain things that I want to do. I have a couple better ideas. So, the next one should be better. I'm glad you like the 2021, but the 2021 one should be really sick. Obviously won't be out for a while. I want to get some of the rookies in there. I want to get, maybe if there's a good clip of our head coach, I want to get some of that stuff too. So that won't be out for a while, but I'm really working hard on that one. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that when it does come out. Let's see. Burrito says, put him behind an O-line like the Packers, and he's staying for a while. Lol. Yeah, I mean, the Packers got a very good team. He's not going to Green Bay, but I think there's a lot of good situations that Stafford could go to. I think there's a lot of good situations he could go to. I think he could definitely win in a lot of situations, and unfortunately, Detroit doesn't seem like it's one of them right now. But you never know. We'll have to wait and see. And if Matt Campbell comes in and does something nobody's expecting, maybe we get to the playoffs. It doesn't matter next year. You cannot find me 5 wins, so that's that. I mean, I think it'll be very telling about our head coach depending on how next season goes. I know our schedule next year is incredibly rough. We play. I don't even know our whole schedule. I'll find it in just a second. But like our schedule is incredibly rough next season. Let's see. Detroit Lions 2020 schedule. It's a rough one. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, I said 2020. I meant 2021. Yeah, it's a rough one. Hopefully we can have some more divisional success. I don't think the Bears are that good. I think we can sweep the Bears potentially. I do think that's 2 wins we could have. I think we should beat Cincinnati. So I think that's 3 right there. I don't know the entire schedule off by heart yet. I think we can beat Atlanta next season. I think we can beat Chicago twice. I think we can beat Minnesota with a competent head coach. We did beat Arizona last year, so I think that's possible. San Francisco is a very good football team, but dealing with different coordinators, so that could be a potential. Cincinnati, we should beat. Philadelphia, we should beat. I think there's a good 6-7 wins we can get in there. I do think it's very possible we get 6-7 wins. I don't think we make the playoffs. Obviously Seattle, Pittsburgh, LA, Green Bay, Baltimore, Cleveland, a lot of very good teams, a lot of very, very tough competition to beat. But it's I don't know how to say this. I've repeated myself a lot. It'll be a rough one. I think it'll be a long season, but I think it'll show what our team is made of. I think it'll be a good chance to see and evaluate the prospects on this team, and not only that, but evaluate our head coach in his first year and his coordinators. Izzy777 says, what do you think about the Dan Campbell hire? For me, he's a solid hire. Nothing bad, nothing great. For me, I don't like it. I don't see anything with Dan Campbell that I can point to and say, oh, he's going to be a great head coach. He's going to be, this guy that we can lean on and he's going to be great. He's a tight ends coach for New Orleans and the tight ends aren't even particularly good there. He's an assistant head coach, but what does that actually do for the New Orleans Saints? Because it's not like Sean Payton needs a lot of assistance. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I don't know and I haven't seen enough out of Dan Campbell for me to say it's a good hire. I've heard a couple nice things. I don't think it's all bad. Obviously, he's going to be better than Matt Patricia because you can't be much worse. I do think he has some good leadership qualities, which I really, really like out of him. I do think that's a very solid quality to have. I think that's a very good thing to have for a head coach, especially, leadership, the ability to lead your team out of the tunnel and get them ready to play on Sunday. I think that's a very good quality. And I think Darrell Bevell had that. And I think you saw an immediate change from Patricia to Bevell. And I think we could see an even bigger boost in that when it comes to Dan Campbell. I think he's an inspirational guy. I think he's a guy that's going to get people, ready, get people excited to go play for him. So I do like him from that standpoint, but for me, I haven't seen a whole lot from him that's going to show me that he's the right guy. And, if I'm wrong, then I want to be wrong. I really do. I want Dan Campbell to be a great coach. I want Dan Campbell to be, the next great breakout head coach. I want him to be the next Sean McVay, but I can't say he's going to be yet because I truly don't. I haven't seen a whole lot out of him that makes me think he'll be a great head coach. Matt says, whatever happens, make sure the Packers don't win the Super Bowl. Hey, I mean, if the Packers win the Super Bowl, though, that means we almost beat the Super Bowl champions. So, at this point, do you want the Packers to win the Super Bowl? Because that means, two of our losses were just Super Bowl champions and it looks a little better because we almost beat them. Or, I don't know. It's a weird situation. It is. I think. Oh, yep. I think he'll be our variable. At best, I think he definitely has that possibility. Again, I don't like the hire right now because I haven't seen enough from him for me to say that he is going to be a great head coach. Honestly, I hope he is. I obviously am rooting for him to be great. I'm rooting for him to bring us playoff success. I'm rooting for him to get us to where we want to be. But right now I can't say he is. Right now I don't have enough information for me to say that he's going to be the next great. He's not. I don't have enough information to say he's going to be the next Vrabel because I haven't seen anything out of him that makes me think that. I haven't seen anything out of him that makes me believe that he is going to be the next, Mike Vrabel. So I hope you're right. And if you have real good reasons for liking him, leave it in the comments below. If I missed something, outside of his leadership and his intensity and his relatability to players, I'd be super interested. But from what I've seen and what I've researched, I haven't seen a whole lot from him that I can point to and say that's why he would make a great head coach outside of his leadership. So I think we'll need good coordinators. I think Dan Campbell will be a guy that, can get players ready. We'll get players excited. We'll get that energy level in the building and kind of get that energy back up. But I think he'll need good coordinators to really have a good team. And obviously I'll be back several times. I'll talk a lot about coordinators in the future. But I think he'll need some experienced coordinators and some real smart coordinators to call good game plans because I just haven't seen that ability out of him yet. But, that doesn't mean it's not there, right? I mean, that doesn't mean the potential is not there. So you can say it nice, but the truth is the truth, bro. The fans don't know as much as they think they do. I mean, I think I know quite a bit, but yeah, some fans think they're a little over insightful, and I'm probably fall into that as well. Watch the Packers win 23-22 in the Super Bowl because someone got called for illegal hands to the face. I feel like I've seen that one before. I feel like I see that. I feel like we've seen that scenario play out before somewhere, but I can't tell you where. But that does sound like something the Packers would get away with. That definitely sounds like something the Packers would do. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening for sure. Why would Dan Campbell be the guy and not Bieniemy? Personally, I get Bieniemy. I get Patricia vibes from Bieniemy. I think he gets carried a lot by Andy Reid. I think when I made the Bieniemy video, some people said that he had kind of a shady past, did some shady things, which again gives me a little bit of Patricia vibes. I personally don't like Eric Bieniemy a ton. Obviously he is an offensive coordinator and has called more plays than Dan Campbell. But I think Dan Campbell's going to get his guys ready more. And personally, I really, really don't like Eric Bieniemy. Personally, he's just not the guy that I like. I get a lot of Matt Patricia vibes from Eric Bieniemy. And obviously, if he goes on to be great, I'll have to admit that I'm wrong. But truly looking at Eric Bieniemy, just having Andy Reid behind him, having, some questionable things in his past, it really gives me Patricia vibes. And maybe it's recency bias and all that, but I really just don't think that he's going to be as good as a lot of people think he is. We do have to get a QB this year, first or second, preferably the first. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that I think the successor is coming, and I think he has to, get here at some point. And what better time than now? There's a lot of good quarterbacks in this class. It's a very good quarterback class. So I'll see. We'll have to see. But I think it's very likely that we see a quarterback go in the first or second for the Lions this season, and I'm not totally against that. Bieniemy won't come here, dude. They all want to move on from Stafford. I just don't think Eric Bieniemy is that good, and personally, I don't want Eric Bieniemy all that much. Same with the Bills coach, Saleh, Dodds, etc. I mean, I think Dodds is not going to get a GMing job. I just don't think he really wants one. I think he's always gonna be that top candidate that never accepts a job. Like that's just kind of what I get from him. But I don't know. It's a very interesting situation with Stafford, and I don't think it's just the Stafford situation. And I don't think you could even trade Stafford because you have a ton of dead cap. But we'll see. And Dr. Detroit, if you know for a fact that they are saying that they're going to move on and that's why they're not getting hired, I mean, I'm not sure how you would know that, but I think it's definitely possible. But I don't think there's a reason to push Stafford out the door just to push him out the door. We can't really, like I said, we can't really move on from him because of cap hits so much. Exactly. I think that's super, Yeah, I think that's very accurate. The schedule is crazy. The schedule is ridiculous. I don't get it. That's why we need to draft somebody like Zach Wilson so he can sit and become great next year. Yeah, Zach Wilson seems to be the top guy right now. Personally, I would rather trade down in the first round versus taking Zach Wilson at 7. But if we are going to pick at 7, I think Zach Wilson's definitely got to be top 2, top 3 on your priority list, right next to Micah Parsons, right next to Trey Lance. I think those are the 3 you're considering at number 7. And depending on what way everybody wants to go, we'll have to see how the Lions pick. Personally, I hope we trade down in the draft, but I think we'll have to see because obviously Brad Holmes has never been a general manager. We don't know if he's going to want to trade down. We don't know if he's going to want to stay where he is and draft very highly. So that'll be an interesting situation when it plays out and for however long it plays out. But I think Zach Wilson's definitely got to be in your top prospects at number 7. I think he's definitely got to be top 2 or top 3 when it comes to picking at number 7 for sure. As he says, we can beat the Steelers. The Steelers are a very interesting case. If we're playing them in weeks 1 through 11, we got no chance. If we're playing them after week 11, we got a chance. So that's where I stand with that. I think the Steelers are slightly overrated, but I also think Juju's an idiot. So, do you play PS4? And if you do, what's your username? I actually play on Xbox. I play on the Xbox. That's just what I have. I have a PS4. But I don't use it a whole lot. That's more my brother's thing. He usually plays the PS4. I usually get the Xbox. But if you want to hit me up on PS4, like we could totally find something to do. People always hate on Stafford for his wins, but you look at guys like Joe Flacco and Nick Foles who had a Super Bowl run, and unless you're mental, Stafford is way better than both of them. Yeah, I think Stafford is way better than both of them. I've said numerous times, quarterback wins is not a stat. Quarterback wins is not a stat that you can judge a quarterback on. I mean, if you want to go off, quarterbacks that win are the best, that means you think Ryan Tannehill is better than Deshaun Watson. That means you think Blake Bortles is better than Matt Stafford because he's been to the playoffs and won a couple more playoff games. I mean, QB wins to me is not a stat. Wins is a coaching stat to me. It's not a quarterback stat. So, I mean, people that tell you that Stafford is bad because he doesn't have playoff wins it's not a good argument. If Stafford had playoff wins, if he had a Super Bowl, I think you could make a very legit shot and a legit argument for the Hall of Fame. I think if Stafford gets a Super Bowl ring, that you can make a real argument for Hall of Fame for him. That's kind of where a lot of people stand, though, right? A lot of people are just saying, he doesn't have the ring, he doesn't have the playoff success, so how can he be a good quarterback? That's not all on him. Obviously, some of it is not, but I don't think you can solely put that on Stafford and say that's 100% his fault. I just think it's easy to blame Stafford because he's been here for so long and he's been the one constant for this team outside of, poor coaching and poor roster building. He's been the one consistent player that's been here all this time. So I think it's easy to put those blames on Stafford when truly it's not that. It's really not that, it's not really his fault. Sure, but the team built, it takes years. I guess so. Stafford to Denver for the 9th pick into 2021. I mean, like Dr. Detroit says, I don't think they can afford him. If we could get 2 firsts for Stafford, I would be okay moving on, but I don't think we're going to get 2 firsts from him. And if we do, then we do, and we see Stafford move on to wherever. But I don't think there's not a lot of teams that can afford Stafford just because he has a pretty large contract. Obviously very deserving of the contract, but at the same time, that means a lot of people can't afford Stafford. So I don't really see us moving on unless it's a team that wants to give up a ton of draft pick and has to clear out some cap space. But yeah. One Pride 40 says, I hate the Dan Campbell signing. I don't like it just because I think there are better people out there. I heard PJ Fleck is getting some interest from an NFL team. There are other guys out there. I'm not a huge fan of Eric Bieniemy, but I know he's still out there looking for a job. There's a lot of good coordinators and a lot of college coaches that I think would be better than Dan Campbell, but I also don't think Dan Campbell is the worst guy we could have gone out and gotten. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's somewhere in the middle, and I'm not going to judge the Dan Campbell signing until I see him on the field, until I see him in action, until I see what he's working with, until I see how he runs a football team. I'm not going to say it was a good or bad hire. My initial thoughts is there are better people out there, but I'm not going to make a final decision or say it's a good or bad hire without seeing him on the field and without seeing what he can actually accomplish. They're paying $4 million for Lock. Stafford would cost 45. Yeah, Stafford has quite a big contract, but they're going to try to move on from Drew Lock is what I'm hearing. I am not hating on Stafford, But if we were to move on from him, we need someone to replace him, and letting a first rounder sit would be a nice replacement. Now, I absolutely agree with that, Izzy. I absolutely agree with that. I think that's the route they got to go, and I think that's the route that they will go. I think that's the smart decision, and I think that if Dan Campbell knows what he's doing, he as much as it pains me to say it, he probably will draft a quarterback if he knows what he's doing, because I think that at the end of the day is the smartest move outside of trading down, of course. Uh, yeah, he did get more out of a bad Miami team than he should have. Fair enough. Fair. I mean, I don't think he's a horrible coach, but I don't think he's a great coach. And I'll have to wait and see. If you wanted Saleh but hate Campbell, that doesn't make no sense to me. Okay, Devin 99. My thing is, I've seen Saleh coach a defense before. I've seen him by himself build and coach a defense that's been the best defense in football. But I've never seen Dan Campbell coach up a football team. And maybe he did, and maybe I just missed it somewhere along the line, but I've never really seen him be a great coach in the NFL. He's a tight ends coach. The tight ends in New Orleans aren't particularly great. Like, I think the energy is the same, which I really like, but I liked Robert Saleh because he's more proven. I liked Robert Saleh because I've seen more out of him that I can point to and say that's why he'd make a good head coach. I could point to Saleh's defenses and say that's why he will make a good head coach in the NFL. For me, I can't really find a whole lot on Dan Campbell to say that. So that's kind of where I sit with that. So yeah, I mean, again, if I miss something, then I miss something. But I mean, that's just where it is. I lost where I was. That's not good. All right. Well, if I missed a comment, then I'm sorry, but we're just gonna start here. If I haven't seen anything that said we was keeping or moving Stafford. It'll be up to the coach and the GM. For sure. The contracts will play into it as well. For sure they will. I don't know, man. I think it's up to Stafford. Stafford wants to stay here. He said numerous times he wants to stay here. So I think if it's up to him, he's going to be a Lion for life. Yes, in that situation, the Jets are a much more attractive organization to lead than the Lions. I think that's a fair point. Who do you expect for coordinators, Devin? That's a question for Devin. I want Marvin Lewis as defensive coordinator. I like his experience. I like that he's been a head coach before, especially with a first-time GM and a first-time head coach. I think an experienced coordinator would be good. So for me, defensive coordinator would be Marvin Lewis, and I think you could stick with Bevel for offensive coordinator. I liked how he finished the season with Stafford and with some of the guys. So I think those are my two coordinators, and then the special teams we can figure out. I like who we have at special teams now. What's up, One Pride Nation? How you doing today? Glad to have you in here. Articles are articles. Yeah, yes, they are. I know, but smoke and fire. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I think Bevel stays as OC, and I'd like to see Marvin Lewis at DC. Yep, Devin99 and I are the same page. We're on the same page with that. I like the experienced coordinators. I think with a young coach and a young GM, I think experienced coordinators could really, really help. I think he could really, kind of steady the ship if it starts rocking a little bit, especially early in the season. If we start losing a couple of games, if things start to go off track, I think an experienced coordinator could be really good. And I think Marvin Lewis is going to be, I don't think you're going to find a more experienced coordinator than Marvin Lewis at this point. Take them with a pinch of salt. Yeah. Yep. Devin, I like that. I would accept that. Yeah. Again, Devin, I think that makes the most sense. Maybe we could find a better guy than Bevel, but I think Marvin Lewis makes the most sense at DC. I was hoping for Dodds, says One Pride Nation. I was kind of hoping for Dodds too. But again, I think you kind of have to look at it like Dodds wants a very particular situation, and I don't think he's going to take a job this year. I don't know if he's going to take a job next year. So, Dodds is in a weird situation because he says he wants to be a general manager, but he wants to go to the perfect situation, and that situation just doesn't really exist here in Detroit, and it doesn't exist very many places at all in the NFL. Especially Detroit news article is not the most reliable. I can kind of get behind that. Dan Campbell will not bring back Bevel. One Pride Nation, who do you think that Dan Campbell will bring in? Because I don't see a huge reason to get rid of Bevel. I think he finished the season relatively strong, and I don't like him as a head coach, but I do like him as an offensive coordinator. So I'd be curious who you think who you think Campbell will bring in as offensive coordinator. It's kind of silly to trade Stafford. Unless you can get a huge return on Stafford, I think that it's kind of ridiculous to trade him. But again, with that contract, I don't know who's going to be giving up a ton of capital to take on Stafford's contract. Even though he's a great quarterback, I just don't think it makes sense from a cap perspective to do so. I think Aaron Glenn is going to be the DC. That means it'll be back to a 4-3. I mean, we'll see. I definitely wouldn't be mad at that. Another one I'm hearing is Wayne Fonts, who I definitely wouldn't be mad at for any reason. I think a lot of those guys are, relatively experienced and again, could help out a young head coach. Dr. DeTrace says mathematically, I'm assuming referring to the silly Stafford trading one, which is kind of what I said. Cat hit plus the rookie at 7 will still be a few mil less than keeping Stafford. I know math is hard. I mean, I struggle at math. You can call me Funk. I'm not the greatest mathematician. Math it might be my worst grade in school, but that's neither here nor there. Math is hard, guys. It is. Trust me. It's $19 million of dead cap for 2021 if you trade Stafford. Yeah, it's a lot of dead cap, and I mean, I would rather pay Stafford the money to be here than pay him $19 million to not be here. So I don't think it's worth trading Stafford for that dead cap on purpose. 33, if you keep Stafford, a rookie at 7 gets, for sure. Stat writer, we obviously need more draft picks than 5. Who can we trade to get more? I think you trade down from 7, to be honest. I think, I think there's a couple of guys here on the roster you can trade, but I don't know who on the roster holds a ton of value to other teams. Stafford obviously would be a big one, but he has a huge contract. So I think trading down from 7 to somewhere in the late teens, maybe early 20s to acquire 2 or 3 draft picks, I think that could be real big. And I think that's a real possibility. Obviously, as draft picks or as mock drafts come out, as I start doing mock drafts and stuff like that, we'll get into that more. We'll get into possible trade scenarios. But I think if we trade down from 7, we could get a decent return. Devin99 says Zach Wilson will be the dream come true. I really like Zach Wilson. From what I've seen, I really, really like Zach Wilson, and I will do a video on Zach Wilson coming out at the latest this week. At some point this week, we will do a Zach Wilson breakdown as obviously a drafting prospect. I'm not against trading Stafford. I'm just against doing it in the wrong way, which will again, I think I'm exactly with you. I'm not against getting rid of Stafford, but I don't want to do it just to do it. I want to do it if the Lions are going to trade Stafford, I want them to do it because it makes sense. I want them to do it because it's going to help the organization. And I don't want them to get rid of Stafford just to get rid of Stafford, just because they're getting rid of Stafford. You know what I mean? Stafford can play 2 years if we draft Wilson. Yeah, I think that's how they're going to do it. I think they're going to draft his successor. They're going to let Stafford play out his contract. They're going to let Stafford play out his career, and that's how it's going to be. I would take wide receiver LSU Chase if we keep Stafford. If Chase falls to the Lions at number 7, I would take Jamar Chase. Other than that, I'm not taking a wide receiver in the top 10. I'm just not doing it. I don't think we can afford to do it. If we need to go out in free agency and pay big money to Lavonte David, or we need to do so, I mean, I like Lavonte David. Obviously, he's a very good linebacker. I don't know if we need to go out and pay him big money. I think it'll be more. I guess it'll make more sense, and we'll have to talk about that more when we get a defensive coordinator in here to see what he wants to run and see what he likes. But I would definitely not be opposed to paying Lavonte David a bit of money to come in here. But again, we don't know if he's even going to be available yet. We don't know how all that's going to work. We don't know if they're going to re-sign him or not. So we'll have to wait and see on that one for sure. Like he says, that would be sweet. I love Lavonte David, but we'll have to wait and see. We got no money. I mean, the cap space is not even real. I mean, cap space is kind of a myth. There's so many ways to work around it. We could definitely find a way to get Lavonte in the building. That's honestly said, if Stafford even got to the NFC Championship game, he'd probably be a Hall of Famer. I mean, I think so. I think he has all of the measurables. I think he has all the statistics. The only thing he's missing is that ring. And, it'll be, if he ends up getting that ring, I think you can make a real case for Hall of Fame. No wide receiver at 7. That's an SO. I mean, Jamar Chase is different. Like, again, I agree with you. If there's any receiver there, I'm not taking him. If it's Jamar Chase, I take a serious thought about it. That's all I'm saying. Jamar Chase is the only guy, though, that I would even consider at 7 as a wide receiver. But that way it stands now. there ain't no way he get in the Hall of Fame. I think you can make a small case for Hall of Fame just based off his numbers. I mean, there are worse quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame statistically than Stafford. So I think you can make a small case, but I think that without the Super Bowl ring, it's a real long shot. We couldn't win with Megatron. Ain't no way we win with Chase or Smith. I definitely don't think we're winning with Devontae Smith. I think Chase could be, I get that argument that we didn't win with Megatron, but it'll be interesting. I don't like wide receiver at 7, but I think if Ja'Marr Chase ends up falling to 7, which I highly doubt that he will, I think you at least got to take a second and consider it. If we take a wide receiver at 7, that better mean we went crazy in free agency and built a defense. Yeah, I think, again, a lot of people are saying, wide receiver at 7 is the wrong move. We also haven't gone through free agency yet. We don't know how our team looks after free agency. We don't know how our team looks going into the draft. So maybe we do stack up on defense, or maybe we get a couple wide receivers in free agency. There's a lot of good ones out there going into free agency. So I think we could see that as well. Taking a QB or a defensive player or a trade down and take a defensive player. I think if it's a question for me, I think you trade down. I think you trade down and take a defensive player. I think it's a very tough scenario. I think it depends who's on the board still. If Zach Wilson's on the board, I think there's a real strong case you take him. I'm not a huge fan of Trey Lance. I don't really like him that much, but I know a lot of people do, so I think that could be a fair argument to do. I think the best scenario for the Lions would be trading down, especially with the way our current GM evaluates late talent. I think that would be the best course of action, but I do then ask the question, where do you get that quarterback? I like Kyle Trask, but does he make it to our second round pick with so many teams needing a future quarterback? Every time people talk about Stafford, we hear W/L. That's not a QB stat, and every one of the same people brags about his comebacks. Wait, so I mean, man, Lions fans are funny. They got to be right. So it's a funny one. Danny Campbell better than Eric Bieniemy. I don't disagree with that. I think I'd rather have Campbell over Bieniemy. I agree, Ryder. I said the same thing. There are better options than Campbell. Yeah, I think there are better options, but I don't think that he's the worst candidate out there. I think he's an average candidate. So we'll have to see, though. Like I said, I'm not going to judge him until he shows up on the field. So we got to wait for that one, unfortunately. But we'll get a very clear view very early in the NFL season next year. Not because the NFL is turning into a passing league. He seems conservative. We'll see. I think coordinators can also be a big part of that. Obviously, he as a head coach might be conservative, but if he has some good coordinators, some veteran coordinators that have a say, I think that could be great. He said he likes to run the ball great. That's what I like to hear. That's fantastic. I love hearing that. I don't know what that is, but sure. Not true at all. Passing teams still have a great run game. Yeah, if you look at the NFL right now, if you look at all the great playoff teams, a lot of them have good run games. Kansas City is a little shaky at times, but they still have a pretty solid run game with Le'Veon. They still have a decent running game that they can rely on when they need to. Buffalo has a good running game. Baltimore had an elite running game. Green Bay has a good running game. LA had a good running game. Who else? The Browns have been a fantastic rushing attack. All the good teams in the NFL right now have a good to great rushing attack, and they play defense well. And that's how you win Super Bowls. That's how you win championships. And I hope that's how the Lions start building around, because I think they have the components for a run game, but I think they're going to need the defense to step up with it. Can we all be honest? There was no home run coaching hires. GM, yes, but not coaches. I think Robert Saleh would have been a home run hit. But outside of him, I think you're right. I don't think there was a ton of guys this year that you can look at and say that guy's a slam dunk, can't miss coach. So yeah, yep, for sure. He threw the ball 30 times a game when he coached the Dolphins. That scares me a little bit, but 30 is not that bad. 30 in comparison to what some other teams are doing, 30 is not a horrible number. And if you're running the ball efficiently, you could definitely get by with 30 pass attempts, but 30 is reaching the limit. 30 is a little on the higher end for sure. What do you think about Wade Phillips as coordinator for Detroit? That's cool. I like Wade Phillips. I think his defenses get figured out a little bit, but relatively quickly. But, for the first 3 years even, I think we could have a solid defense in Detroit. We just can't keep Wade Phillips for too long because it seems as though his defenses get figured out relatively quickly in the NFL. But I think Wade Phillips could be real good. He's experienced. He's obviously done it for a while. So yeah, all I know is that last season he did an interview and said he wants to run the ball and play good defense. I mean, that's what you're saying I mean, if you're in an interview, that's what you're going to say, right? If you're in an interview with a team trying to get a job, you're going to say what you got to say. But, obviously we'll see. As I said, we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. That's all we can do at this point. He went 5-7 as an interim head coach. I mean, hey, that's better than Matt Patricia went as a real coach for that's on better pace than Matt Patricia did as a real head coach. So I mean, I can't argue, can't complain. I will lobby for Lewis as DC now. Lol. I like Marvin Lewis as defensive coordinator. Obviously, I think that experience as a coordinator was really going to help if we can find a guy that's experienced, that's been a head coach before for a coordinator, and obviously that fits Lewis. Fits Marvin Lewis to a T. I think that would really help this Lions team. Yeah, every playoff team has a good defense and runs the ball. Go watch the playoffs. That's a bad thing to say, but it's not. I mean, look at how the Browns won. They won because of run game and defense. Look at how Baltimore won their first game. They did it for run game and defense. I mean, a lot of real good teams have a great running game and a great defense. So it's a passing league, but it's great teams have great rushing attacks, and great teams can play great defense. I went 5-7, taking over for a 1-4 team. Yeah, I mean, I think you said you. I read that completely wrong. He went 5-7, taking over for a 1-4 team. That's not horrible. That's not bad at all. Again, better than Matt Patricia. Are you not watching the playoffs? I definitely am watching the playoffs for sure. I think they do. I think a lot of good teams have good run games and good defenses. That's just my opinion. That's 17 games. They were 1-3 and finished 6-10. I mean, yeah, I'm again, I have very mixed opinions on Dan Campbell. Why do people think that head coach has to have called plays before to be a head coach? The Ravens coach was a special teams coach. Well, but he called special teams, and that's his area of expertise. Dan Campbell, I haven't seen him call any games before. And again, I think that he having the energy, him having the, energy level to get people ready and get people up and playing, I think is a big part of it. But if you've never called plays before, what qualifies you to be a head coach in the NFL? Right? I can find a lot of people that can motivate people. I can find a lot of people that can motivate grown adults, but what makes him a good head coach would be the ability to know the X's and O's of football, would be to have called plays before, be a big factor in that. So I think calling plays is a huge plus for a lot of Lions, or for a lot of coaches in general. And the fact that Dan Campbell hasn't done that a ton scares me a little bit. I mean, y'all can agree or disagree with my statements, but I'm just going to tell you how I see it. Yeah, I do. If he will call the plays or not, I don't know. I hope the coordinators do. 6-10 is with a terrible team is bad. I mean, no, it's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. That's not what I'm even saying. I don't know. Let's see. He just needs the right staff. He'll be a good coach. I think that's true. I think that's very, very fair. Are the Lions going to stay in a 3-4 team? I guess they pretty much have to be for the time being. I think it depends on the defensive coordinator they bring in. I think it really depends, if they want to bring in Wade Phillips, if they want to bring in, Marvin Lewis. I think there's a lot of different – there's different ways they can go, and I think they could be successful at either one. But I think we'll know more once the defensive coordinator gets here for sure. I love that Campbell wants to build a defense and run the ball. I mean, that sounds good. I mean, I'm all down for running the ball and playing good defense. I'm all down for that. It depends on who the DC is. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Running the ball opens up the passing game. Look at my Titans, for example. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the Titans are one of the best and most dangerous teams. Obviously, they lost in the first round, but they ran the ball. And I'm not going to say they played fantastic defense, but I mean, they did good enough at times to win football games. So yeah, running the ball opens up so much things. It helps the defense out because they're not on the field as much. It helps the offense open up more. A great running attack is key for everything in the NFL. And I think that's what the Lions need to do if they want to take that next step. Devin, do you realize that's what Patricia and Quinn wanted to do? Well, Yeah, but Patricia just I think Dan Campbell will be more open to new ideas. I think he'll be more open to players. I think he'll be more relatable and I think he'll be better to his players and that will make his players want to play for him more than Patricia. So, in theory they might have a similar philosophy, but I think they'll go about it different ways and I think that they'll build the team in different ways than, I think Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes will build this team in a different way than Patricia and Quinn did. So the philosophies might be the same, but I think the way that they're going to go about it and the way that they're going to be towards the players in the organization will be drastically different. Have you seen Baltimore and Tennessee? How did that go? Well, Baltimore won because they had a better defense and a statistically better running game. I did watch that game. Baltimore's really, really good, and Tennessee is pretty solid, even though they might not have the greatest defense. He doesn't have a choice to but build a defense. Quinn literally I mean, you can't go far. You can't go any worse than the 32nd defense in the NFL. So all we can do from here is go up, right? Did they do that? I mean, they didn't do it, but they tried. That's what every team wants to do to win with defense in the running game. That's very, very true. I mean, they wanted to do the right thing. They just didn't go about it the right way. And hopefully Dan Campbell can look at what they did wrong and, correct the mistakes. No, they did short passes and screens. Yeah, but those short passes and screens were almost an extension of a running game for Detroit for a long time. I just think you got to take a QB high in the draft. I mean, I don't think that that would be a poor choice. I don't think that'd be a poor move at all. I think you could definitely make that argument for sure. I like Bevel too as OC, but I like Marvin Lewis as head coach. I think that would, but a good combination. Stafford should be the QB at least. I think Stafford should be the QB and play out the rest of his career, play out the rest of his contract at least. I like Bevel. I think Marvin Lewis is definitely a more experienced head coach, and definitely a guy that has the energy, or at least had the energy when he was a coach. He's a guy players wanted to play for. So I think Marvin Lewis to me would have been better. But I'm very much willing to give Dan Campbell a chance. It's a good thing to do as a philosophy for sure, for sure. They just sucked at it. I mean, if you can't do your job, you can't do your job. They had the right idea. They just didn't execute, fantastically. You can't say that running the ball is inherently bad just because Quinn Trisha wanted to do it. Running the ball it's a very good thing. I mean, again, look at a lot of good teams. They run the ball effectively and efficiently. So I don't think running the ball is inherently bad. I just don't think Quinn Trisha did a good job at installing and putting together pieces and putting together a organization that was equipped to do so. David Arnett says, let's just look at the playoffs team and tell me who can't run the ball and who doesn't and who doesn't. Okay, let me restart that one. Just go look at the playoff teams and tell me who can't run the ball and who doesn't. Every winning team runs the ball. I mean, a lot of teams do run the ball pretty well. They just do. I mean, you look Green Bay, they run the ball well. You look at Cleveland, they run the ball very well. You look at, as I said, Kansas City, they're much more of an air raid attack, but they can run the ball when they need to do so. Let's see what Kansas City will do today passing the ball. Kansas City is an explosive passing offense, but they can run the ball when they need to. They can. I like Trey Lance. I personally don't like Trey Lance a ton. But we'll have to see. I don't think he's a horrible choice, but he's definitely fourth quarterback on the board at the best. The good teams aren't passing 40 plus times, let alone 30 plus a game. When they do, it's extremely close game. Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at a lot of football games, you look at what's a good example. Look at the Buffalo Bills game versus the Miami Dolphins game. The Dolphins needed to win that game. Tua passed like 50 something times and they got blown out. Like, you have to run the ball to be a successful team. The Bills hardly threw the ball in that game and won by 50 points versus like the number 2 scoring defense. So I mean, it's just, you can't throw the ball that often. You want to throw the ball 60 plus times a game? I absolutely do not. I want to run the ball 60 plus times a game, bro. Like, if we can run the ball 20, 30 times a game, that would be my dream, because I think running the ball is key to being in the NFL. A head coach is supposed to be a leader. When Campbell was interim head coach in Miami, all the players wanted to play for him and stay as a coach. Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Again, I look at Campbell and I tell you, he doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the experience play calling really that some of the other guys have. But the one thing you can't deny is he has passion and the players like to play for him. So, from that standpoint, I definitely like the hire from that standpoint. But again, I think it'll come down to who his coordinators are, who he wants to bring in, what are the guys that he wants in here, who's going to be his coaches, right? Because I think his play callers and the coaches that he brings in is going to dictate his tenure in Detroit. I think it's gonna make or break his tenure. So I think the hires coming soon will be huge. If you don't watch them today, 35 pass attempts from Mahomes at least. Mahomes is kind of the best quarterback in the NFL. But I don't think they will. I think that they're going to try to run the ball because Cleveland just does a good defense, man. I think if you drop Mahomes back that many times, he's going to get hit a lot. They also have a running back who missed multiple games and still had exactly, Devin. If you take a wide out in the top 7, you obviously don't realize the draft is loaded with wide receiver talent. I realize the draft is loaded with wide receiver talent, but Ja'Marr Chase might be the best wide receiver to come out since Megatron. So, yeah, that's kind of saying something. Did you watch Super Bowl last year? Damian Williams won them that game. Exactly. Damian Williams was that Super Bowl MVP. Patrick Mahomes may have got the award, but we all know deep down that Damian Lewis was the best player in the game. Calvin Johnson, Michael Williams, Charles Rogers were all supposed to take the team over the top. Next level, whoops. Well, Calvin Johnson, you can't really complain about that pick, can you? You can't complain about Mike Williams, Charles Rogers. Absolutely, you can say that was a bad pick. You can't complain about the Calvin Johnson pick. You just can't do so. He'll look at how the 49ers won against the Packers last year. Absolutely. I think that's a great teaching tape for a lot of coaches. Look at how the Packers won against the Rams last night. Exactly. Tony Holly says, defense first 2 rounds are bust. I don't think you have to go defense, but I think you got to, at some point early in the draft, you got to load up on defense. So I don't know if you got to go, strictly round 1 and round 2, but I think you got to go early and often at defense. But you do got to sneak a quarterback in there somewhere, unless you find it in free agency, of course. Look at the Browns. Exactly. Look at the Browns. Yeah, why did the Steelers win? They passed so many times and didn't run at all. Yeah, exactly. Big Ben had 67 pass attempts, bro. Ben had 500 yards. Ben also threw 4 interceptions on 67 pass attempts, and they got crushed. How could they pass that much and still lose? Because the running game wins football games, and so does defense, and the Steelers did not play particularly good defense in that game. Don't forget that the other options also have to want to come here. That's very, very true. It's very true. And I think Campbell could be a good guy to, convince guys to come here. Without Chubb/Hunt, the Browns would be the Browns. I think that's a fair statement. I think that's a very fair assessment. Everybody who wants to move on from Stafford should look at how many first-round quarterbacks have been bust since 2010. The odds of the Lions getting a franchise quarterback at 7 is slim. I don't disagree with that, but I also, I think that you have to take a quarterback. And a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL fail because of poor coaching. I think a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL fail because they don't have the coaches. They don't have the guys around them to help them significantly. And, when players fail, it's generally because their coaches couldn't get them to be great. Obviously, you have the exceptions of maybe a Jamarcus Russell or a Johnny Manziel who truly didn't care. But, a lot of it comes down to coaching and development. And if the Lions can do that with a quarterback, they'll be set for a long time. And if they can't, they're going to be stuck in a bad situation for a long time. They have a great passing game. You have to have a great, right? Yeah, the Lions have a good passing game, though. And they don't, they have the pieces for a good running game. They just don't use it effectively. So you're saying we'll forever have to draft one eventually. We do have to draft one eventually. That's a fair point. There is not such a thing as a guaranteed great coach. Hyped up coaches have the chance to fail or succeed. Yeah, that's very fair. You got to look at, everybody, because at the end of the day, hype doesn't make you a good or bad coach. Passing the ball in the modern NFL. Look at the Bills last night. The Bills, they won a 17-3 game. It should have been a lot closer than it was. If Lamar doesn't get hurt, that's probably a closer game. If Tyler Huntley hits that wide open pass to Hollywood Brown, it's a 10-17 game going 5 minutes left in the game. The Bills didn't have a particularly great game last night, and they won that game because their defense played lights out for, 90% of that game. You can get a franchise quarterback at 7 or even later. You can, mean, the draft is all a guessing game, right? I mean, you as as a player, as a fan, as a coach, you really have no idea who's going to be great. You have no idea who's going to do what in the NFL. I mean, nobody thought Tom Brady was going to be great. Nobody thought Russell Wilson was going to be great. Nobody thought, some of these other later round quarterbacks were going to be great, but they are because they're just great quarterbacks. It's all a guessing game at some point. And why, coming out of college, some guys might look better. In the NFL, everybody's on an even playing field again. What about Rex Ryan at DC? I don't think that'd be the worst thing to do. I don't think that would be the worst decision we could make. Yeah, how did that work for the Bills? Because they played phenomenal defense. The whole game was field goals. Very true, very true. Plus, Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals. That game should have been a lot closer. And if 1 touchdown here, 2 made field goals there, that's a closer game. I mean, that's a winning game almost that's a 1-point game if Justin Tucker makes his field goals and if that touchdown is completed to Hollywood. That's a 1-point game with 5 minutes left. They scored 17. They won because of defense. Absolutely. Devin, I didn't take a QB. You don't want to get rid of Stafford till they think the backup has a chance to succeed. Very true. Very true. Very true. Yep. Dan Campbell reminds me of Mike Vrabel. He definitely has the energy of Mike Vrabel, and that's something I like. He definitely has the mindset, definitely has the leadership ability. So I think that's very true. I think you could definitely make that case. I think that's a fair one. One Pride Nation says, I'm worried about the Saints tight ends. Haven't been that good since he got there. Anyone else worried about that? I mean, I've said that a couple times already. But we'll have to see. Again, I think a lot of it's going to come down to coordinators. I think his job as a head coach is going to be get guys ready, get their energy level up, get them ready, make them want to play for you. The coordinators will take care of the rest. And if he can do that, he might have success. Reid was an assistant. Very true. Andy Reid was never a coordinator. Very true. That's a fair point. It's not a guarantee, but that shouldn't mean we keep holding off at drafting one. No, very true. Y'all are very smart people, as I'm finding out. Steve-O, yeah, but if the QB sits, he'd be met at worst, but not a total bust. I think that's true. I think the more you sit a quarterback, the more you let him develop, and the longer you can resist from throwing him into that fire, the more likely he'll be to be a good quarterback, or any player. I think that works for any position of need. Sean Payton's offensive scheme doesn't include a lot of tight end play. Plus what you talking about is tight ends. They have been good. I agree to disagree. I don't really like the Saints tight ends a ton. Devin 99, we might not have a choice. I wouldn't be surprised if Stafford demands a trade. Stafford's not going to demand a trade. Stafford has said numerous times he wants to be here, so I don't think that's. Jared Cook has some of the best years with the Saints. All right, I'll be right back. I'm just going to fix something real quick. I'm going to open this up and see if I can get a little more light in here. Maybe that's better. I'm going to try. It's getting just a little dark, so I wanted to go open that. I think that's a little better. I don't think Stafford's going to demand a trade because I think he wants to be here. Dan Campbell was an assistant head coach and tight end coach. Their scheme used tight ends like Campbell's, or like the Campbells of the world has blockers. You can't look at how the tight ends were used and bash the guy. I mean, I don't think that's a reason to hire him or not hire him. I'm just pointing out facts that I see. I thought he was better with Green Bay and the Raiders. Cook's very old. He is very old. Again, Peyton's scheme doesn't include a lot of tight end play. That's a fair point. He had 300 yards and 1 touchdown with Green Bay, so he definitely wasn't better with Green Bay. I don't know where you got that. I mean, I'm not going to start that argument. I'm not saying Campbell is going to be the next Andy Reid, but Andy Reid was never a coordinator. I mean, yeah, that's true. That's a very good thing to point out. That's a very fair argument to make. Again, I think we'll have to wait and see. I'm not going to tell you that Campbell's a bad coach before I've seen him coach. I'm not going to say he's a bad head coach or that he was the wrong hire before I actually see it in action. So, yeah. I'm starting to come around to Campbell. He's a motivator and never called plays. Could be an advantage. He doesn't come married to a scheme, so he can hire coordinators that bet. Yeah, that's a fair point. I didn't think about that, but that's a fair point. Obviously, the motivator thing, I knew the motivator thing. I was obviously very informed upon, but I think that's a fair point. That you look at Campbell, he's not married to a scheme, so maybe he will be more open to using our players to the best of their ability. Yes, but they're calling in Miami, short stuff. So that's all into. I mean, Tua's just not that good of a quarterback, to be totally honest. I mean, they're already looking to trade Tua after 8 games. So look at Joe Judge. He was the wide receiver coach. I thought he did a great job with the Giants. I thought he did a very solid job with the Giants. I thought he was a very good head coach for the Giants this year, for sure, absolutely. We need a running back like Henry because Swift can't carry 400 times if Campbell wants to run the ball. But I think Carryon can split that load a little bit. I think you could get some decent running backs in the draft. If Trey Sermon declares, I like him a lot. Raheem Boyd, I like him a bit out of Arkansas. I mean, there's some good guys to come out that can split the load. Where I don't think we need a Derrick Henry, but we can split between Swift and KJ and maybe one other guy. And I think that can kind of maybe not be as effective as Derrick Henry as an individual, but I think if we bring in some guys, we as a team can be just as effective. You don't remember when Jimmy Graham was on the Saints. Peyton can take advantage of any weapon he has. Yeah, Sean Payton, I think, is one of the better offensive minds in football right now. We will pair Swift with some Brad Holmes, was drafted some good running backs. Yeah, he was for sure. For sure. Yes, but how does his offense work? Doesn't really rely on a great tight end. If that was the case, they would do everything to get a good tight end. I think Sean Payton can use anybody, but I don't think he relies on anybody, which is what makes him and what makes the Saints such a good football team. I think again, Sean Payton can make the most out of anybody, but doesn't rely on anybody. So that makes them dangerous. That makes the Saints very tough to beat. Good coaches play to their team's strengths, trying to force rushing the ball when your team sucks at it and your QB can sling the rock is a poor way to coach. But the Lions don't suck at running the ball. DeAndre Swift was very effective when running the football this year. They can absolutely do it. They didn't do it enough last year, and that's why we lose football games. I mean, we did not do it enough. And obviously, Swift wasn't healthy the entire year. He had that concussion, had the illness, whatever. So we can run the ball efficiently. We didn't do it enough. I think Swift, I don't even know what DeAndre Swift averaged this year, but he was pretty effective when he was rushing. DeAndre Swift stats. Let's see. He was at like 4.8 yards a carry this season. I mean, he was really, 4.6 yards a carry. That's really good. Swift can definitely run the ball. So I think it's not forcing the ball when your team can do it and can do it at a high level. Yeah, we have Swift who has shown he can run very well. Exactly. Steve-O, quick question. Who is the tight end in New Orleans since Graham was in his prime, but who, by the way, lined up in the slot majority of the time? Jimmy Graham's a good tight end. Sean Payton's a good coach. That's all I got to know. And the offensive line was shown that they can open up big holes. Absolutely. I think they got at least 3 of the offensive linemen figured out, which is huge. A couple potential names to keep an eye on that could be the next Lions DC under Dan Campbell. Saints D-line coach. The Saints have a pretty solid D-line. And Saints DB coach. I'm not huge on the Saints DBs, along with ex-Cowboys DC. I mean, I wouldn't be super mad at the D-line coach. But other than that, none of those guys really stand out to me. There are some other guys that I think are much better, more capable, more qualified. Cook is not a good tight end. He's not Graham in his prime, but Peyton doesn't know how to use a tight end wrong. Fair enough. Never said that he does. I mean, we're talking about tight ends, man. Like TJ's great. TJ is better than Graham. It's fine. It is what it is. They'll find a way to get him involved. Andy Reid was the Green Bay's OC when Favre was in his prime. That's how he got the Eagles job. I did not know that. I was not alive, so I don't have an input. I never said he didn't know how to. I just said, yeah, Sean Payton's great. He was a QB coach and the assistant coach. He was never the OC. Again, I wasn't alive. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. Pair Swift with Trey Sermon, that could be deadly, man. Trey Sermon turned it on at the end of last season for Ohio State. If he stays healthy in that championship game, that's a much more competitive and a much closer game. Patricia feels like Campbell. I don't think I don't get that feeling. I don't. I think that Campbell is a much more fiery guy. I think he's going to relate to his players and get his players to play for him a lot better. If anybody gives me Patricia feels, it's Bieniemy. I don't really see that with Campbell. Like as he says, he's not like Patricia really at all. I'd be very curious, one pride for you to see, your comparison and see why. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't see it personally, but I'd love to hear how you feel that way. Campbell and Patricia are two completely different people. Yeah, they have very different personalities and very different ways that they're gonna get their players to do what they want. The dude's 6'5" and absolutely just and he's but also yeah, I think he'll earn the respect of players much better. I guess I was wrong. Andy Reid was Green Bay's offensive assistant. I could have swore I heard. I mean, hey, it is what it is. That's why we're here to talk football, guys. I mean, hey, if you're wrong, it happens. Patricia was 5'6", 300 pounds. I love it. I love it. I love it. Joe Brady. I did a video on Joe Brady. I don't think he's quite ready to be a head coach, but I don't think he'd be horrible at it either. I like Joe Brady. I would rather have Campbell. I would like Brady to get a couple more years of experience. Exactly. I think Devin 99 hits the nail right on the head. Okay, how is Campbell different? Well, they just have different personalities, and they're gonna get more out of their players in very different ways, in my opinion. I think Campbell's gonna be a much better motivator. He's gonna get his guys out on the field much better. Um, at Dev, tell me why you love this coach pick so much. Me and you agree on Brad Holmes. I mean, I'd be very curious, Devin, if you would like to leave that in the comments, that would be fantastic. But I personally, for me, I like the coaching hire. Obviously it's not official yet, but it's pretty official. I think he'll be a good coach. I think we could definitely get, a good guy in here. I think Campbell could definitely get some people going. I think he could definitely, get the right people in the building. And I think he has the potential to be a very good head coach. And that potential is what's going to keep me optimistic as we go into next season. You're the one who brought it up, so say your case. We're like running out of comments, guys. Come on. There's 17 people in the building. I know we can get some comments going. I know we got some questions going on. Nobody got anything for me anymore. They just kind of stopped. All right, you can call me Funk. Let's see. Build your comparisons. Don't make a blanket statement if you can't keep up with it. Hey, I mean, I don't know if you're talking to me or somebody else, but I mean, I'm just telling you how I see it, man. I don't see any comparison between the two. So if somebody else sees a comparison between one or the other, I'd be super curious as to hear why. But I don't see it. I personally don't see it. I want Salah because he's a motivator, so I can't get mad when we get a motivator and a leader. He really reminds me of Vrabel, former player who coached. I mean, I wanted Salah too. I really did want Salah, but I didn't only want him for his motivation. I wanted him because he's proven that he can build a successful defense. And that's the only thing that Campbell's missing is I haven't seen him by himself build anything super successful in the NFL. So that kind of scares me a little bit. But from a personality standpoint, I do think they're very similar players. And for that reason, I can't be super incredibly mad at the hire either. I agree with you on that, Devin. My only knock is, did they allow Holmes to pick him? I don't know if they allowed Holmes to pick him. It sounded like, upper management. It sounded like, Chris Spielman. It sounded like Martha Ford and Rod Wood picked him more so than Holmes. But that could have been in the works before Holmes was even hired. That's kind of a knock for me. If you're going to hire a general manager, do you not trust him to pick your general manager? Is it a thing that, Brad Holmes is just inexperienced and they wanted their guy? Like, is Brad Holmes even okay with Dan Campbell? Like, I think that's a very serious question, because if Dan Campbell wasn't picked by Brad Holmes, how is their relationship going to be? How is that going to work? Are they going to dislike each other because one didn't pick the other? Is Brad Holmes going to not want to work with Dan Campbell, and that's going to cause division within the organization? I think that's an interesting thing to look at. But I haven't necessarily heard anything negative either, so I can't say that it was a good or a bad decision. Devin99 says, one thing that did scare me with Salah was 49ers fans said he didn't do much adjustments. Well, to be fair, I mean the defense was pretty solid. They didn't need a whole lot of adjustments, but again, that's kind of he's only been a defensive coordinator for 4 years. Like, he's relatively new at defensive coordinating. I mean, he's been a linebackers coach for a long time. So, I mean, I think Saleh still has some room to grow. But I think his potential and what he's shown so far was the best combination out of just about every candidate. Unfortunately, we're not getting him, but I'll go into the future hyping up my man Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is Urban Meyer 2.0. I would be very curious to see how so. I'd be very curious to see where you how you thinking with that one. I'm not gonna say you're wrong, obviously, because I'm hoping he's Urban Meyer 2.0. But I'll be. What can you explain to me what your comparisons are? I'll be very curious to hear that one. I think that's an interesting comparison right there. I think it was a group decision. I think that's probably fair. I think obviously I don't think they would have hired Dan Campbell if Brad Holmes came out and he was like, we're not hiring Dan Campbell. If you hire Dan Campbell, I'm done. Like there obviously that conversation didn't take place. Obviously I couldn't imagine that Dan Campbell was so against Brad Holmes, or sorry, the other way around. I can't see a scenario where Brad Holmes was so against hiring Brad Campbell. So I think they'll be okay. But I do think that if Holmes didn't pick him, I think it could be kind of interesting. Saleh did plenty of adjustments from what I saw. I thought Saleh was very solid. Maybe there was a couple of times here and there, but I mean, to be fair, there wasn't a whole lot of adjusting that needed to be done. And I mean, when his defense needed to make plays, when his defense needed to stand up, Saleh's defense did so. I would assume that Sean McVay was younger than Joe Brady when he got hired by the Rams. I think he would have the highest ceiling and the lowest floor of any coach. Yeah, Sean McVay was younger than Joe Brady, but Sean McVay also worked in the NFL much longer than Joe Brady has. Joe Brady's not been in the NFL that long. I believe he's only had like 3 years of NFL experience. I think McVay had more. So that I think is kind of the comparison. It's not so much an age thing as an experience thing. And I think Sean McVay had a bit more NFL experience than Joe Brady had when he was hired. To go from pass game coordinator to college OC to head coach in 3 years. Yeah, that's a big jump. And I think Joe Brady will be a head coach one day. I just don't think I think he needs a year or two more to develop and kind of fine tune his system in the NFL before he could be a great head coach. I skipped down a couple because the thing moved. Holmes mentioned his Rams defensive coordinator. I mean, if Rams as a head coach or for the defensive coordinator position, because I like him both. Obviously, the Rams have a very good defense. They were the number one scoring defense in the NFL. Obviously, now out of the playoffs, but they put up a good fight. They went far in the playoffs. I mean, they had a very good season. And the Rams have a great defense. They coached a very talented defense, but he put all those pieces together and put them into the best scoring defense and one of the best defenses the NFL had seen. So, Devin 99, it worked out for the Rams when they hired McVay. It did work out for the Rams, and I don't think they trade it for just about anybody. Obviously, Holmes knows more than Sheila Woods, and if they don't let him pick his coaches and not let him do things his way, or how can be the GM job? I think it was a collaborative effort this time. I think with Brad Holmes being on the job for literally 4 days, I don't think, he has full control yet. I think as he gets more experience, I think as time goes on, he'll get more and more leeway, get more and more, individuality. He'll get more and more responsibility. But I don't think 4 days on the job, you can trust a guy to say, that's going to be the guy to run my team. I think it was a collaborative effort to acquire Campbell. Yeah, but they were really lucky. Who was really lucky? I was assuming the Rams is who they were talking about. With Sean McVay. Both coaches know how to inspire an Urban start. Oh, did he? I didn't know that. That's a fair comparison then. But yeah, I think motivation is real big. I think motivation is huge for a head coach. I think motivation is what you got to look at the most if you're a head coach. Because you can be the smartest guy out there. Matt Patricia was the smartest guy on the field, but he couldn't motivate his guys. And yeah, he might have been book smart, but if you can't motivate your guys, and if your players don't want to play for you, you will never be successful in the NFL. If Holmes doesn't want Campbell, they won't get Campbell. Exactly. If Holmes truly didn't want him, they wouldn't have got him. I think it was a collaborative effort. I don't think you hire your general manager and then 4 days later, make him not want to be the general manager anymore by hiring somebody he doesn't want. I think it was a group decision, but I do think he was a part of that group decision, just like Devin's saying. It's a group decision. He is a part of the decision. He's part of the group, so he had a part in the decision. And I think if Brad Holmes came into Sheila's office and he was like, I can't work with Dan Campbell, we cannot draft, or I said draft, we cannot pick him up, we cannot have him as our coach, Sheila wouldn't have hired him, or Sheila wouldn't have hired Brad Holmes. Like it's two very, the two parties are working together at this point. So I think it was a collaborative effort. Marcus Willis says, I hope we can get Aaron Glenn for DC and Scott Williams, who's the pass game coordinator for the Rams at OC. I think that could be an interesting scenario, and I'll look a lot more into offensive and defensive coordinators in the coming week. Now that we know the coach and the GM, we can go kind of into coordinators and all of that, and have a little bit more idea of what the Lions are trying to build. Holmes was hired, and then 1 day later they picked Dan. Yeah, I don't think you do that. I don't think you hire your general manager. And I mean, if you hire him in 1 day, you can't let him have you can't give him the keys to the car on day one. He's got to earn that. But I do think he was part of a collaboration when it comes to picking the head coach. So I don't think you make your general manager upset with the organization day one. True, but he isn't the decider on the hire. Yeah, but I think he has final say, where if he walks in and says, I can't work with this guy, they wouldn't have hired him. I just think that's how that situation played out. That's how I feel it would have played out. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, no one can say one way or the other, to be fair. He can put his 2 cents in, but he's still a new general manager. He definitely is a new general manager. I think he has final say, but I think it was a collaborative effort. I do. I really, really do. They will do what they want to do. Very true. I mean, I think that's fair. The Lions are going to do what they want to do, and whether that be right, wrong, or other, good, bad, or somewhere in between, the Lions are going to do what they feel is right. I mean, to be honest, this pairing can't be worse than Patricia. It can't be worse than Quintricia. I think this pairing of GM and head coach, for me, it's a very high potential, high risk kind of a thing, right? Where you have the potential here, right, to get a top GMing candidate that's very good at evaluating talent and getting talent into the team. And you have a high potential coach that is good at motivating people, that knows how to get people inspired, knows how to get people he knows how to get people to do what he wants. He knows how to get people on the field, get people ready. So I think I think this pairing has a high risk, high potential, where you could get a general manager that is incredible at evaluating talent and bringing talent to the team. You could get a head coach that is incredibly inspiring to his players and gets his players ready and makes his players want to play every day. Or you could get two first-time guys, a first-time general manager and a first-time head coach. Both of them fizzle out. Neither one lives up to the hype because neither one has the experience. And then we're stuck in a similar situation where, maybe we can't quite get to, the guys we wanted. Maybe they're not quite the guys that we wanted them to be. So I think it's a high risk, high reward kind of a thing. But at this point, I'm not super against either of them. Maybe Matt Campbell was a name Holmes named as a possible coach. He's okay to work with during the interview. I feel like that's probably what happened. I feel like that's probably the scenario that took place. Referring to this comment, of course, I think that's a very fair assessment. I think it's a very fair, thing to look at. I think, obviously, I don't think they hate each other. I don't think it's, I don't think they can't work with each other. So I mean, obviously they don't hate each other, or else one of them would not have taken the job. I don't hate Pick. I just want him to have control, not them. I think he will have control, but I don't think on day one you can just, throw him into the fire. I mean, we talk about not throwing a quarterback into the fire immediately. You can't hire a general manager and say, all right, make your first big decision and, shape this franchise for the next X amount of years. Like, I think it makes sense to be a collaborative effort. And I think as time goes on, he'll have more and more leeway. So, yeah. Okay, I'm back. What are we talking about? We're talking about Matt Campbell, and we're talking about Brad Holmes for a little bit. We talked about Sean Payton for a bit as well. We talked about Dan Campbell being a tight ends coach. We talked about Andy Reid for a little bit. So we're kind of going all over the place. Right now, we're just kind of talking about Dan Campbell. What's good, Looney Tune? I love the way that you have your name. That's so cool. Very creative. Looney Tunes is awesome. Great show. Marcus, I bet it was something like that. Maybe. It's probably something like that. I agree. Bieniemy was a front runner until he started whenever he did in his youth. He was clean for 20 years. We need a creative offensive mind. I personally get Patricia vibes, and I've said this already. I personally get Patricia vibes from Eric Bieniemy. I just don't like him. I think Andy Reid's the mastermind behind that. I think Andy Reid's the innovative mind. I think, even the pass game coordinator is the innovative mind. I think Bieniemy is absorbing that. I think Bieniemy is still a smart players coach, or I think he's a smart coach. I think he's a smart offensive mind, but truly, I get Patricia vibes. I really, really do. And, I think at this point, I'm taking Campbell over Bieniemy because I just get so many Patricia vibes from him. I really do. I just can't. Maybe it's recency bias. Maybe I'm being biased because I just truly, I really get Patricia vibes, and that really makes me worry and really makes me cautious of bringing him in. Whoever is the coach and the GM, they have to be on the same page with each other. And thanks on the name. It's a cool name, but yeah, you're very much right. You're very much right. They got to be on the same page, man. And I hope they are. Bieniemy probably doesn't interview well. It's not even that he doesn't interview well. For me, it's that he reminds me of Patricia, man. He reminds me of Patricia. There's something about him besides his controversy that's turning teams away. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Who says Bieniemy is a creative offensive mind? He could be Patricia working with Belichick for all we know. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, that Belichick and Patricia, that combination reminds me a lot of the Andy Reid and Bieniemy combination, and that scares me off a lot. Why do you think Bieniemy is a creative mind? Because he can help run an already successful offense. I mean, if you look at it though, right? Like Matt Nagy was successful without Patrick Mahomes in that offense. The Chiefs still had a top 10 offense without Patrick Mahomes, without Tyreek Hill for some of those years. Matt Nagy, the current Bears head coach, he's not really anything special in the NFL as a head coach. He was relatively successful as the Chiefs offensive coordinator before Bieniemy, and now look how that's turning out. I mean, it turns out Andy Reid was the mastermind behind that. So who's to say this time is any different with Bieniemy? And that's what scares me off from Bieniemy more so than anything that happened in his past. Because I'm not going to say I could care less what happened 20 years ago, because if he did something wrong, he obviously did something wrong. And I'm not going to say that's okay to get away with. But to me, I mean, if you do something 20 years ago, it's less important to me than what I see right now. And right now, I see a guy that is getting carried by his offensive minded coach that's right behind him. Nobody wants the Houston job. It's the least attractive job in football. Maybe we are more attractive than people think. I think we're very middle of the pack. I think we're definitely more attractive than Houston. I think we're definitely more, I thought we were more attractive than Atlanta. But we're definitely better than Houston. And I think, what can you even say good about Houston though? Teams don't care what you did 20 years ago if you're a good coaching candidate. I agree with that. Lol, Detroit will. They already tried to dig up Campbell's past. Yeah, but everybody, if you go back deep enough in anybody's past, you're gonna find something controversial. It's just how it is. It's just, I mean, if you go back far enough into anybody's past, you're gonna find something controversial. They said you're gonna find something bad. You're gonna find something wrong with them. Nobody's perfect. Everybody said something stupid in college. It doesn't concern me a whole lot with what Campbell said. Obviously, I'm not gonna tell you that it's okay that he said that. I'm not gonna tell you that I agree with that because I definitely don't. But I mean, if you go far enough back, you could find probably some dirt on just about any coach in the NFL, any player in the NFL. They said something stupid in college because they were college kids. They were probably, under the influence of something. It doesn't bother me too much about Campbell's comments. I wish Detroit would have interviewed Eberflus. I agree. I really liked Eberflus. I wish we would have interviewed him as well. But I don't think Matt Campbell's the worst option. That's the media. They always do that. Well, the media's got to make a story, right? The media's got to have something to report on. So, I mean, I don't blame them, but at the same time, it doesn't concern me what Matt Campbell said in college. Again, he's a college kid. College kids say stupid things. It's just, it's how it is. because he's running the offense that's been in the last few Super Bowls. As far as that goes, we can't trust any coordinator. I mean, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Houston has good weather. I guess that's fair. That's a fair point. It snows in Detroit. You're not going to get any snow in Houston. Maybe he's a snow guy. You don't know. Maybe he likes going snowboarding sometimes. Maybe he likes building snowmen. You ever think of that? Didn't think so. They did that with Campbell. Something he said that was borderline anti. Yeah, yeah. What's good, Speakeasy? How you doing today? Welcome to the Lions Talk. We're just talking some Lions football. Just enjoying the day. The Lions aren't playing football. I still had it. Oh, it's snowing bad outside. I just turned to my window. It's like white. What's going on, Easy? How you doing today? Hope you're having a fantastic day. Houston also has a young quarterback. Yeah, young quarterback that wants to get traded. Yeah. It's just like I think if people are gonna say that they're turning away the Detroit job because of the certainty with Matt Stafford, there's no way they're gonna take the Houston job with the uncertainty with Deshaun Watson. Because at least in Detroit, they're gonna have somewhat of a choice with Matt Stafford. They could take the Houston job, and the next day Deshaun Watson's like, actually, I'm getting traded tomorrow. So I mean, it's just I think that's what makes the Houston job the worst. They have no cap space. They have no draft capital. They have no money. They have, I mean, not great players that they just went 4-11, hold the number 3 pick, but they don't even get to use the number 3 pick. Like the Houston is by far the worst. Nah, EFF and for trying to dig up. Ooh, I mean, it doesn't bother me though. Like the things that media sources are gonna dig up, they're gonna do it because they need a story. I mean, media sources need something to report on. They need something to write articles on. So, I mean, they're going to dig up everything. It's just like in the NFL draft. That's why you hear, there's always a sad story to an athlete. Some relative died, some relative overdose. I mean, like it's with every athlete, it's with every person. Somebody has a backstory. Everybody has something. Ain't snowing here yet. It snows here at some point, though. It does snow in Detroit at some point. I'll tell you. Well, I'm outside of Detroit. I don't live in Detroit, but it's snowing where I'm at. Um, Campbell was the pick, and I have a feeling it has to do with Stafford. It probably does because a lot of what the Lions do has to deal with Stafford. So I don't disagree with that. I think that's a very fair assessment, very fair point. But yeah, I think that's fair. Campbell is said to be Peyton's right hand man. If that helps anything, I mean, I think that helps something. I think obviously he's learning under Sean Payton. He's learned under Sean Payton for a lot of years now, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, Patricia was supposed to be learning under Belichick for so many years, and that didn't equate to anything. So, I think Campbell has some high upside, but until we see him on the field and until we see what he's trying to install, I can't say one way or another whether it was good or bad. Good weather means nothing when your strongest attraction isn't happy. It's a good thing. It's not a good thing. Houston's not a great spot. How about report on his track history as a coach or something like that? Well, then that matters. But like for me, if somebody comments on something, it's like, oh, I made a comment 20 years ago in college that's controversial. Like that doesn't mean anything to me. Obviously, coaching history means something, but I mean, if you make a controversial statement, it doesn't affect me a ton. The guy wrote that said something worse and multiple times. Um, yeah. Campbell was 7-4. He was 5-7. I believe is what other people were saying earlier. But I mean, I also heard they started 1-3. So I mean that's not the worst you could have finished as a head coach, to be very fair. So yeah, like yeah, Looney Tune is saying 5-7. So I mean, not a bad head coach. I think with the experience he does have, he's shown some decent flash. He's shown some decent things. But I think that's a decent stopping point. If nobody else got any questions, chat's starting to slow down a little bit. We've been on here for an hour and a half at this point. So I think we're gonna wrap it up here. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed talking Lions football. Do you think the Lions should hire X Michigan? No, I don't like Don Brown at all. Brandon, I really don't like Don Brown. Uh, Campbell probably has a good outline for how he's. Yeah, I'd hope so. But I think that's where we're gonna wrap it up today. We've been on for an hour and a half. I really enjoyed this Lions talk. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad you guys could. I'm glad you guys could come out, come hang out, talk some football with me. I really enjoyed it. I'll be back next Sunday with more Lions talk. We'll pick up where we left off. Obviously, if there's more news, if there's more things going on, then obviously, we can get on to with that. But with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the Lions talk. Leave comments in this, leave comments after this video. Let me know what you guys thought about this Lions talk. I really enjoyed it. I had a ton of fun with it. I enjoy answering your questions. I enjoy talking football with you guys. You guys are obviously very smart, very, very good people. Sub to, if you're not sub to me, go sub to my channel. If you're not sub to Mr. Speakeasy Sports, make sure you go sub to him as well. If somehow you have not seen or not come across his fantastic content, he is a great content creator, great guy, very funny, very smart, very intelligent. You'll like his content a ton. So if you could go sub to him, that would be fantastic. Obviously, all the other members of the DSA in my featured channels tab, go sub to everybody if you haven't done so already. With all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for coming out, talking some Lions football with me. I'll be back later in the week. I'll be back tomorrow with more videos, and I'll be back next Sunday with another Lions talk. Thank you all so much for coming out. I appreciate y'all. See y'all later. Bye, guys.